Hi guys, Cooking with Dad here. Today we're going to be making spaghetti squash with meat sauce.
The first step in the process is to cut the spaghetti squash in half. There are a number of ways to do it. I used a pumpkin carving set, and I used a punch to puncture a hole, and then I used the small carving knife that comes with that to score all the way around the spaghetti squash. As you may know, this squash is pretty hard. So there are other ways to do it. You can put it in a microwave and microwave it for a little bit so that it softens the skin, and then use some kind of a knife to cut around. But I just find this is a little quicker. So so once we get there, we can pull it in half. And there we are. So once it's open, we carve out, we scoop out the seeds and whatnot in the middle because we don't want that in our dish. Now once we have them removed, you can compost these seeds, or you can use them in another dish and just set them aside for now. Once all the seeds are removed, we're going to cook these spaghetti squash in the oven by placing them on a baking sheet, and maybe putting about 1/4 inch of water in the baking sheet. Put the squash face down, and then put them in an oven for 45 minutes at 400 degrees. Now while that spaghetti squash is cooking in the oven, we'll move on to make the meat sauce. I just have it's like a 12-inch skillet, and we are putting in some olive oil, and then chopped 1 medium onion. The skillet's at it's at a moderate heat, and then we're going to cook these onions for about 10 minutes until they are somewhat clear, and then we can try to move it around a little bit so that it doesn't burn on one side. And then we can put a clove of garlic and try to brown that. And after the garlic is brown, we can put in some ground beef and brown that as well. So just make sure everything is brown, and we can begin to start adding the seasonings to the meat. The first thing we do is add a teaspoon of salt, and we're going to want a teaspoon of Italian seasoning, which is mostly basil and oregano. And then we're going to add a tablespoon of sugar. And you mix that up into the ground beef. And then we throw in a 14-ounce can of diced tomatoes. And then you bring that to a boil. Reduce the heat, cover, and simmer for 10 to 15 minutes. At that point, you can uncover it and add about a cup of prepared spaghetti sauce. So this is a shortcut of between having actual jarred sauce and making it from scratch at home. So it's time to check the spaghetti squash for doneness. So take it out of the oven and stick a fork into it, and if you can pierce the skin, it's pretty much done. So you flip it over. You can let it cool too, but you can flip it over, and then you use the fork and move it in the direction of the strands of the squash, and then the spaghetti squash will come out in strands that look like spaghetti. So we'll remove the spaghetti squash strands and put them in a serving dish, and then we'll cover the spaghetti squash with the meat sauce that we just made. And keep in mind, you can make this sauce without meat if you're totally vegetarian. And then you smooth it out there, and all fit, and we're ready to serve.
Well, that's spaghetti squash with meat sauce, and this is Cooking with Dad. don't forget to subscribe. Thank you. See you guys.